And I would say to President Trump, I will retaliate with trade tariffs against American goods.
Welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. I'm your host, David Krayden. Thank you for joining me today. Back again. We're going to have a lot of material to go through today, and these are dangerous and exciting. I'm not going to use the word challenging. We know who loves to say that all the time. But that was Pierre Poilievre. He's jumped on the tariff war bandwagon. He wants to retaliate. I showed that at the beginning because what's going on at the border? We have been saying this now for quite some time, and I want to follow up with what Pierre Poilievre said in his statement, which of course that he wants a trade war. And I think it's extremely interesting. This has happened right now. So this was released, of course, on January 22nd, 21st, the day after the inauguration, where Pierre Poilievre commits himself to essentially to a trade war, but also to reopen Parliament. But it's a quandary, isn't it? If Parliament is reopened, and we all know that the Supreme Court might rule that prorogation didn't really happen. It was illegal. So the House might be back on February 15th or 16th. What happens then? Are they going to vote to bring down this government, or are they going to vote on trade retaliation? This is becoming increasingly difficult for Pierre Poilievre to navigate. Now, we'll be right back with more about what this means for Canada. We need political change, but we also need to resolve to resist. Yes. So I want to take you to a CBC, or actually a Radio Canada story. This is not even available in English, but what's going on here? The story about how the RCMP purchased drones from China. Yes, drones from China. Now, not a good idea, because we can't use them at the border. So I'm just going to take you through this story, which like I say, this is absolutely fascinating. These are DJI drones from China. We can't use them at the border. The United States is actually putting through legislation right now outlawing the use of these drones at the border. So we can't even use them. Let's take you through this story here, because this is absolutely fascinating. In recent weeks, the U.S. government has launched a public consultation to ultimately ban the sale of drones from China. The American authorities suspect this country of using these devices for espionage purposes and of being able to control them remotely. And these are the drones Yes. No, sorry. According to our sources, the equipment currently owned and used by the Canadian Border Guards is obsolete. Last year, nearly 19,000 people were intercepted only in the Swanton sector located in southern Quebec, which covers the northern states of New York and Vermont, an increase of just 800%. 800%. I'll get back to that page. My apologies. In recent weeks, the U.S. government has launched a public consultation to ultimately ban the sale of drones from China. This is happening now. The American authorities suspect this country of using these devices for espionage purposes. The bill also presented to Congress, in which it is mentioned that DJI, it's actually DJI brand devices, feature an unacceptable risk to the national security of the United States. We have been ordered to use them only for search and rescue. The Americans are not in favor of the use at the border, confirms another agent. Our sources at the RCMP believe that Canada does not provide sufficient resources for border surveillance, particularly in the eastern and Montérégie. Our hotspots do not deserve any attention to date. Ottawa's announcement, it seems to be beautiful powder in the eyes, smokescreen, to silence the critics. Another agent told us, while recalling that border teams also lack drone pilots. So nobody guide these things. According to our information, the workforce has nevertheless been slightly revised upwards in recent weeks in the wake of Donald Trump's statement. Some agents from other sectors and departments came to reinforce the border patrols. Now, in recent months, in the wake of his election, Donald Trump has promised to trigger a state of emergency in the United States and mobilize the federal army to expel thousands of migrants, illegal migrants. Now, so what does this mean? Now, this is where things are getting really sticky. Okay? This is where things are getting really, really sticky here. Because Donald Trump has made it clear that this 25% tariff, and I'll play this again, is coming as a direct result of inadequate border security. We couldn't even get the right drones. And the problem is deeper than that. But listen to what Donald Trump said again. A lot of us thought, hey, we got a reprieve. There's no tariff coming. It's coming on February.
On tariffs on Mexico, given these actions you're signing on the border?
Well, we're thinking in terms of 25% on Mexico and Canada because they're allowing vast numbers of people. Canada's a very bad abuser also. Vast numbers of people to come in and fentanyl to come in.
When do you think you would enact those?
I think February 1st.
Are you planning on keeping notice of that?
I think we'll do it February 1st.
25% on both, sir?
Sir,
On each.
On each, yes.
this is an executive order.
February 1st. Now, who's actually fighting for Canada right now? Well, that's obvious. It's not Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau wants a trade war with the United States. I've been saying this for weeks, actually months. This is the only hope he has of clinging to power, or the Liberal Party has of clinging to power, is to create a trade war with Donald Trump so he effectively can run against Donald Trump in the next election, not Pierre Poilievre. And Pierre Poilievre has boxed himself into a corner now by supporting the trade war, along with Trudeau. But Trudeau's objective here is to run against Donald Trump in the next election, whether he runs against him or the Liberals actually find a successor to Justin Trudeau. And that's not guaranteed because the government could fall in mid-February, necessitating an early election without the Liberals having selected a new leader. Justin Trudeau would run in any election with those time limits. Now, what has Justin Trudeau done? Has he taken Donald Trump's concerns about border security very seriously? No, he has not. And I've been saying this from day one. Nobody else seems to pick up on this. Here's the fall economic statement. This is absolutely shocking. Now, you can see under securing our borders, this is section 3.1. Go to the end of that table. It says $1.302 billion total funding. How is that allocated? Over 6 years. So in this fiscal year, we're only spending 81 million. 144 next year. Goes up to 278 the following year. 275, 282. Reaches a peak in 2029. 241 the following year. So how can a government tell you they're going to spend $1.3 billion on border security when most of it, the vast majority of it, is in 4, 5, 6 years' time, when this government won't even be around? So this is a smokescreen, yes. Trudeau has done nothing to secure the border because he doesn't want to secure the border. He wants a trade war with Donald Trump. I keep saying that, and the evidence is in the fall economic statement. That is the Liberal document. That's the federal government document showing where that border security money is being spent in which years. That's not going to work, folks. I think I can tell you that with some certainty. Now, who is fighting for Canada in all of this? Well, let's listen to what Anita Anand had to say. She's usually one of the more, shall we say, tolerant Liberal cabinet ministers. But let's hear what she had to say. My hair is falling all over the place today. And let's hear what she had to say about this.
Prime Minister has said we will use all tools in our toolbox to address any illegal tariffs that come forward. And that should not just be one province alone. All of us need to bear the sacrifice that would be made if we move forward with retaliatory measures of this sort. But as I said, Canada has vast natural resources and raw materials, and we need to diversify our markets going forward so that we ourselves are leveraging the depth of our natural resource sector.
So we all need to make a sacrifice. But who got us into this mess? Justin Trudeau got us into this mess. It's Justin Trudeau's responsibility. He's the one who did it. And that, my friend, is the problem that we're not hearing enunciated, articulated by this Liberal government. Suddenly, it's your problem and mine. Suddenly, we're the ones who have to sacrifice because of his incredibly inept governance. Now, Donald Trump has made it quite clear. It's about border security, it's about nothing else. And if Justin Trudeau hasn't got that message yet, it's not for lack of trying for on Donald Trump's behalf anyway. I don't think Justin Trudeau is trying too hard to get this message. And I think he could still come up from behind and run in this next election. It's entirely possible. But who's been doing all of the work on behalf of Canada? Well, I can tell you who that's been. It's been Premier Danielle Smith of Alberta. And she has been called a traitor for not jumping on the Team Trudeau bandwagon, for not saying, yes, we're going to embargo oil and gas from the United States, and for telling the federal government they have no right, they have no constitutional authority to make that decision on behalf of Alberta. The federal government cannot do that. The Constitution provides natural resources to the provincial jurisdiction. That's how it's always been and hasn't changed. Now, Premier Danielle Smith understands that. And she is the only one actually meeting with Donald Trump and his representatives. She's been down in Washington meeting. And it's probably the only reason that this tariff didn't come in on February 1st, because Donald Trump thinks there might be some hope. And let's watch this.
We're clear about why we find ourselves in the situation that we're in today. It lands 100% at the feet of Justin Trudeau, who even just a few weeks ago gave a speech where he thought it was an affront to women that Kamala Harris didn't win. We're in a trade negotiation with a brand new administration, and we have a prime minister who keeps on poking his finger in the eye of the current administration and has damaged that relationship. So if there's a failure, it lands at his feet, which is why I'm counting down the days to when he's gone and we can have a reset. It's 47 days to go, and I hope he doesn't continue torching the relationship in the meantime. All I can do is try to repair and build relationships that should have been repaired and built over the last 4 years. That is what we do by having our office in Washington. We have good relationships with people on both sides of the aisle, because that is what diplomacy is. You have to be able to work with both Democrats and Republicans, and you have to refrain from expressing a preference for who you would like in the White House. And so if there's a failure of leadership, and if there's a damage to the relationship, it's 100% at the feet of Justin Trudeau.
Yes, thank you for True North for that little snippet. But that is precisely it. I've never heard a more succinct explanation from a politician about what the problem is. The root problem right now is that Justin Trudeau is not taking this seriously. He's created the problems. He's deliberately alienated Donald Trump by saying he's sorry he won the last presidential election. He thinks Kamala Harris should have won. Great way to engage with a new president. And of course, that's all Justin Trudeau knows. And by the way, I'll take this opportunity right now to say, please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Please like this broadcast right now if you can, so we can continue to beat those YouTube algorithms, which are very, very deadly at times. So, but thank you again for watching today. And I find this predicament that we are in to be completely of Justin Trudeau's making, just like Danielle Smith explained there. I think she was dead on with that. Very confusing times, I'll say this, because what is, a lot of people are asking, why is Donald Trump meeting with Bill Gates? Well, he met with him before the inauguration. I don't know if that makes any difference, but I like a lot of the things he's saying after the inauguration, things he said on Inauguration Day. And I love the fact he's trying to end the war in Ukraine. By the way, if you have a chance, please read my Human Events column that went up yesterday, I think, yes. Because this examines exactly what Donald Trump said the night before the inauguration and the day of the inauguration. Now, a lot of people thought he was going to say one thing to the MAGA crowd, to supporters at the event on Sunday night, and another thing to all Americans in his second inaugural address. And as a matter of fact, he didn't. He said the same sort of things, in fact, sometimes the same lines in both speeches. And that suggests to me that he is really serious about change. And I don't mean the kind of change we always hear about getting normalcy back into government, to stop obsessing over things that really don't matter, to get the government out of our lives. And I must say, Poilievre said that earlier this week. He had the interview. I might recall it later. He had the interview with the reporter who said, "Are you going to say there's only two genders, Mr. Poilievre, like Donald Trump did?" And of course, they went back and forth with Poilievre saying, "Well, if you have any more genders other than the two, please let me know about them." And I thought that was quite effective. But great things happening right now with Russia and Ukraine. And we finally have, this was on Redacted yesterday. If you didn't see it, this is great news. Because a lot of us were uncertain when Donald Trump came. Was he going to be serious about ending the war in Ukraine? Was he going to be serious about stopping the carnage? Yes, he is serious.
Donald Trump has just issued an ultimatum to Russian President Putin. It's time for peace right now. And the warmongers in Congress and Ukraine are pissed off. So we'll have more on Zelensky's response here in a minute. First, President Trump sent a message to Putin a few hours ago telling him to come to the peace table or he will impose vicious sanctions on Russia, the likes of which he's never seen before. Which is pretty ominous warning from the Trump team. This is something, of course, that President Biden didn't do. He didn't do it all, never pushed Putin towards the peace table, even though Putin repeatedly said they wanted to talk peace over and over again. In fact, the Biden administration and Boris Johnson stopped peace talks, destroyed the peace agreement in 2022, you'll recall, and they basically was already signed. Of course, President Putin, Zelensky had an agreement in place. And if you look at that agreement, what's stunning about it is that a huge swath of land that Russia now controls wouldn't have been under Russian control back in 2022. Huge pieces of land in eastern Ukraine, where ethnic Russians have lived for years, which were under constant bombardment and a genocide, would have actually reverted to Ukraine. Now that's off the table because they scuttled this entire peace agreement in 2022. Biden only ever presented Russia with two options. fight to the death or surrender immediately. And Putin was never going to do either of those things. Why would he? Since
Now, I have to interject. I don't know what more sanctions can be imposed on Russia to make a difference that way, but I do think that Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump are able to have a conversation, unlike Joe Biden could not communicate with Vladimir Putin because he was incapable of doing so. And nobody in his presidential office could do so either or wanted to. Tony Blinken wouldn't talk to Putin. None of the people surrounding Joe Biden had any interest in ending the war. They loved it. They wanted to keep the war going. Remember how close we were to nuclear war in December, in November? We've walked away from the brink. Now is the chance to actually do something really constructive. And I think we can do
2014, the Obama administration and the CIA-backed coup that took over Ukraine in 2014 and set up multiple CIA field offices all over Ukraine. It is a de facto proxy state for the CIA in Ukraine to roll out digital IDs, to do everything that they wanted to do, biolabs there, baby-making factories. Oh yeah, baby-making factories in Ukraine. Ukraine being one of the number one exporters of babies in the world, and baby parts. Disgusting. That's your CIA for you in Ukraine. So the Obama CIA team helped Ukraine carry out a genocide against ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine. So surrender immediately was like the only response from the the Obama team and the Biden team. It was never an option for Putin and Russia. Now, another stunning development this morning from Trump on the war in Ukraine. Ukraine is pissed this morning when they learned that Trump just halted any weapons or arms being sent to Ukraine. Uh-oh. Sorry, all your weapons are cut off now.
Now, this is significant. They finally cut off the arms shipments because who is getting wealthy off this war in Ukraine? The military-industrial complex, which I used to deny ever existed. But why should I? Dwight Eisenhower identified it in 1961. It's there. It loves the foment wars because people make billions of dollars off of other people's misery. And that, of course, has been exactly what's been going on in Ukraine. And Donald Trump, if he does nothing else in the next 6 months or a year, he's finally said the arms are stopping. And when the arms stop, the war stops because Ukraine can't continue this. We need to have peace in Ukraine because this thing just about went off the rails to the point of ending life as we know it on Earth.
The only reason this war was continuing at all is because the Biden administration kept sending weapons and ammunition to Ukraine. The teat is about to dry up. No more teats. No more teats of milk flowing with American weapons into Ukraine. That stopped. According to the Kiev Post, yes, Ukrainian journalists confirming today that all shipments of weapons and military equipment to Ukraine have stopped at NATO bases in Europe. According to preliminary estimates right now, we're talking about several thousand tons of weapons, according to Megatron on X, and military equipment stopped. Sorry, Ukraine. It's all dried up. Here's the Kiev Post. All Pentagon officials, and this is a huge other piece of the story, even more stunning, all Pentagon employees involved in arms supplies to Kiev have been fired or suspended. And President Trump has put in place a large-scale audit of the misuse of funds for aid to Ukraine.
Wow.
Now, the report goes on to talk about a Ukrainian army general where they found $1 million of U.S. cash in his living room. This has been wholesale robbery, and it's been going on way too long. And thank God that Donald Trump is doing something about it in his first week in office. Mind you, there are going to be people out there who think this is just horrendous. But I do think we're finally seeing the end of the insanity. Now, if we can only get our act together with national security in Canada, we can get the border security in line with something that's acceptable. Because I've been out to see those places here in Canada, in the PN, where they're setting up mass refugee camps. They've been anticipating a mass influx across the border with the United States as soon as Donald Trump became president. And that's happening right now. The deportations are underway. We will be seeing people come across the border. Will the Canadian government, will the Trudeau government stop it? Or will they stand idly by and say, hey, these are all refugees? Are we going to see a repeat of 2017, 2018, when we have the mass refugees, so-called refugees, coming across the border, staying in 4-star, 5-star hotels in Toronto, Montreal, in Ottawa? Are we going to see a repeat of that? Well, I predict we probably will, because the border is porous both ways. They're coming across to Canada, and they're going from Canada into the U.S. And buying drones from China didn't help. Spending $1.3 billion on border security over 6 years doesn't help today. Now, Donald Trump can read the fine print. Do you not think his advisors didn't show him a copy of the fall economic statement and said, here's how the Canadian government is spending its money on border security? Not today, not next week, not even in the next year. It's the lowest amount of money. It's coming in years 4, 5, and 6, when, of course, this Trudeau government won't even be here. I think we can safely bet on that. But I can't overemphasize enough that Pierre Poilievre has to be extremely careful about getting on board with Justin Trudeau with this trade war. He has to be extremely careful, because if he's not, he will be co-opted, and he will be seen as simply the guy who agrees with Justin Trudeau on this issue. And that begs the question. Trudeau can say, hey, I thought you wanted trade retaliation, tariff retaliation. So if we come back into the House of Commons, that's going to be the issue. That's going to be the House business. We have to put this through as legislation. So Poilievre will be trapped if that happens. He has got to be careful about being co-opted by Justin Trudeau. It has got to be paramount in his policy mind right now, that he cannot be seen as being part of the Trudeau government. Because believe Donald Trump isn't even aware that Pierre Poilievre exists half the time. He knows who Danielle Smith is. She's been down there constantly, meeting with him, doing trade talks. She's been very visible. Now, Pierre Poilievre has to be very careful. He needs to be the guy Donald Trump understands is the incoming prime minister, because he apparently doesn't seem to get that. He still talks about Wayne Gretzky as being the next prime minister, which, of course, Gretzky could do if he ran for the Liberal leadership and won. But I have a feeling Gretzky leans more towards the Conservatives. So that's not going to happen. But Donald Trump knows this is a charade. He knows the border security is a fraud. He knows that Justin Trudeau has no intention of really solving the problem or even identifying the problem, because the trade war is helping him. And this is why you have liberals keep standing up and saying, we're all going to have to sacrifice in this together, like we're going to war again. And I tell you, that's very dangerous. It's very dangerous for Canada. And we have got to be the Conservative Party has got to be the next government in waiting. And Donald Trump needs to know who Pierre Poilievre is. Right now, Danielle Smith is doing all the work. Danielle Smith is doing all the negotiating. And Danielle Smith is really doing the job for Canada, because Justin Trudeau is not. And the Liberal cabinet is not. So we need to keep the pressure on Pierre Poilievre to really get serious about negotiating with Donald Trump, because he will be the next prime minister. And we need an election now. I'm trying to find my. I can't find my bumper stickers. Where are they? But we do have bumper stickers. I can't tell you enough about these things. Yeah. Where are we? No. Sorry. But we need an election bumper stickers. I want you guys to have a look at these. Let's go to the store for a minute. I'll be right back with more. Yes, found them. Election Now, Canada First. These are our latest bumper stickers. We can get them straight anyway. Please have a look at the merchandise. Have a look at the store. Order these for your vehicle, for your filing cabinet, wherever you think people are going to see them. Because we do need an election now. That has got to be the paramount objective. That's got to be what we're more concerned about than putting on a front and starting a trade war with the United States. We need an election. Justin Trudeau is incapable of representing Canada. He's an illegitimate prime minister. He has no public support. We need an election as soon as possible. Thank you for watching today, folks. I will be back again tomorrow and every morning at 10. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.